Hi newbies, Nurse Ruthy here. I hope everyone's having a great summer. I'm coming from my very blessed and lovely home here in sunny Florida. We're on my front porch. We have a river behind us. I'm so grateful and so blessed. Have the incense going, my stones to protect us. I wanted to talk about who am I and why am I doing this podcast. I have been a nurse for 13 years. I've worked in pain management. That was joyful. Also, I worked in med-surg for many years. I learned a lot in med-surg, a lot. And most recently, I've been in the emergency room, which I love. It's my heart. I love the ER. The Newbie Nurse Podcast, as the title states, is for all newbie nurses from Florida. I went to community college. I got my associates in nursing, and then I went and got my BSN at the University of South Florida. I will say, by definition, I had a very traumatic childhood. I did not come from a wealthy family. My mother was a CNA. She worked very hard. She also worked with handicapped patients. I'm very blessed to have her in my life, and I feel like she was one of the reasons that I was introduced into nursing. Unfortunately, I was getting into trouble as a young teenager, and she made me volunteer at the nursing home that she worked at. And at first I was not very happy. I had other things to do rather than hang out with a whole bunch of old people. But it actually became one of the best things I ever did in my life. It taught me so many things. I learned patience. A lot of those patients or residents at the nursing home were so funny, and they are so close to my heart. I have a great photo of that motivated me during nursing school that I would look at, and it motivated me when I felt like I wanted to give up. But as I mentioned, I did grow up in a very abusive, and it wasn't just like my mom and stuff. It was, I grew up in a very traumatic environment, and maybe one day I'll get into that. But I don't think today's the day. But I guess the point is that I came from a place where most people who were in my situation did not get out of. They saw no way out. Again, like, my parents had no money. I knew no one in college at all. And I never saw a way for me to go to college. It was like, I don't have any money for that. My parents don't have any money for that. And it was simply because I was not educated on just like the opportunities of Pell Grants and scholarships, and just the different opportunities that are out there nowadays. I'm sure there's more now for people in my situation. My mom used to tell me that she did not let me watch the news as a child because I really took it to heart. I'd be like, oh my God, there's a fire. There was a fire at a place or a building, and I'd be crying. She's like, no, you can't watch the news anymore. So to me, and that shows that I was very sensitive as a child. I don't watch scary movies. I hate scary movies. I do like haunted houses, though. I like that little jolt of fear every now and then. But I don't like scary movies. So even though I've been through a lot of shit, I was still a very sensitive person. So when I got into nursing, I was completely shocked of how mean, number one, the patients could be sometimes, and also my coworkers. I was not prepared for that. Nursing school did not mention anything like that. Maybe I just had like the rosy sunglasses on and just didn't believe that, people treated nurses like shit. But I learned very quickly. I had a charge nurse that once said, you need to get thicker skin. This is one of my first nursing jobs. I believe a patient made me cry. A lot of patients made me cry. But she was like, you need to get thicker skin. It was, and when she said that to me, I was like, wow, it felt like she was blaming me. Like it was my fault. Like I wasn't a tough cookie to take the abuse. And that's one thing that, looking back, I see that leadership, instead of saying you need to be tougher, and it is my opinion that they should say, let's talk about it. Let's talk about ways we can build you up as a person, your self-esteem. Look at all the good that you're doing, and look at the reason perhaps the patient is feeling this way is because they don't feel good. Just don't take it personally. You're doing a great job. Or they could have said, or she could have said, look, she'd even offer to switch assignments. Like, if this patient's being mean to me, why are you going to keep me as a nurse? It was crazy. Looking back, I was so new. Now I would ask, hey, can someone switch with me? Obviously, we don't have a good rapport or relationship. He's taking something out on me. They're taking it out on me. It really stuck with me, that conversation, how this particular charge nurse tried to blame me for having a good heart and being sensitive. So I will say, yes, I have gotten thicker skin, but like I mentioned before, it's more like I built my self-esteem. And as a new grad, I was not aware of nurses eating their young. I had no clue. I got a first-hand look, though. Nurses, techs, just even the freaking cafeteria lady. She was so mean. But, it did make me the nurse that I am. Maybe they just saw a light in me that irritated them. But I know now I was where I was supposed to be, and that situation was supposed to happen for me to be here with you newbies right now. The number one reason that I am doing this podcast is because even as a nurse for over 10 years, I came to a point where even with all the self-help, I had a situation where I was being bullied really bad at work. And to others, it may have not seemed as if I was being bullied. It's all about perception, but I was, in my opinion, for months. And I went to my manager, and I believe she was on my side, but it took a long time for these individuals to no longer work at my facility. As a new nurse, I was not prepared for the nurses eating their young. I had no clue. Like I said, in nursing school, I've never heard of that. In clinicals, I just thought the nurse was grumpy and just didn't want students. But I didn't know that's how it was all the time. But it got to a point where I felt isolated. I felt like I was walking on eggshells. I felt like I had no one to talk to. And that's not good when you have to deal with people's lives. You have to feel confident. So thankfully, I found my tribe, my circle of nurses that really listened to my crying, my bitching, and mentored me. And I hope that the Newbie Nurse Podcast can help with that. I recall being sad. No matter how hard I tried, I felt like I was failing. I felt as if everyone was watching me, everyone was talking shit about me. Oh, she sucks, she's not gonna make it. And these are just thoughts that I had, the conversation that I had in my head. And so imagine having those thoughts in your head, and then the high level of stress of taking care of sick patients and learning a whole new culture, a whole new language, protocols. It's a lot for a new grad. As a new nurse, I had zero ability. I was not taught about communicating with bullies, how to deal with conflicts. I simply just curled up and was like, yes, ma'am. And unfortunately, that is not correct. Especially growing up in an environment, not so much my home, but the neighborhood that I grew up in. Whenever you disagreed with someone or somebody stood up to you or yelled at you, your reaction was to yell back, because it's survival of the fittest. And that's what I grew up with. So I couldn't do that in the bedside. I mean, I didn't do it much anyway in the streets, but unless I really had to. But I guess what I'm getting at is that I was never taught, number one, have a good self-esteem. You have to set boundaries. This is how you communicate with people when they speak to you certain ways. I learned all of that on my own, and actually I've learned it in like the last 5 years. I created this podcast for you. I created this podcast for the newbies who feel like no matter how hard they've been working, how hard they've been trying, they get in their car after work and they are just bawling all the way home. It's not you, okay? It's not you. You may have people yelling at you. You may have staff members being rude to you. When I first started as a nurse 13 years ago, I had no clue that nursing was going to be so toxic. I thought nurses were nice. And for the majority, most of them are. They talk about burnout and they say, oh, that nurse is just burnt out. But hey, what are we going to do about it? What are we going to do to help this nurse? Maybe she needs to take a vacation. Maybe she needs to take a break. Maybe she needs to go work somewhere else. Because that toxicity does spread. And you feel like you're walking on eggshells. And it just sets the tone for the units. You know, especially new people, like, oh, this is how it gets down here. You know, this lady's rude. She's rude to everyone, or they allow that here. And then you feel like you can't say anything about it because it's been the trend. You know, there was a time when I went to a very dark place. I started feeling hopeless and helpless. I had some certain thoughts in my mind that thankfully that I did not do. But just having those thoughts in my mind was enough. I was scared because I felt like I was doing the best I could do, and it still didn't seem good enough. And that's when your leadership comes, in hand. You know, they have to be there for you. They have, if you notice that your nurse is being isolated or she's coming to you with issues management, please listen to her or them. Listen to them. They're coming to you. Do you know how hard it is for a nurse to go to their manager and let them know that A, B, C, or D is happening? Like if they feel bullied, I'm sure they've been thinking about it for months before they came up to you to let you know. And this is that they're at their wits' end. So take it seriously. Hi newbies, Nurse Ruthy here. Please, can I ask you something? Please take 1 second. Just 1 second. Okay, a couple seconds. Could you subscribe, share, talk shit? I don't care. To the Newbie Nurse Podcast. I would really appreciate it. Look, I'm not making any money off of this, but I want this to spread. I want the Newbie Nurse Podcast to help those new nurses. I need it to get in front of those new nurses. And when you do like or comment or share, it makes the algorithm take notice, and it'll share it to other people and suggest it to new nurses. So again, I've never done a podcast before, and I'm just kind of going with the flow. And it would mean a lot to me if you can help me, please. So thank you for taking the time to listen. I really appreciate you all. And remember, treat people how you want to be treated, because what you put into this world is what you're going to get out of it. Thanks. Have a great day. All right, so I've been a nurse for... Welcome to my front porch. It's raining and there's gunshots in the back. Yeah, it's like when I grew up now. I do live in Florida. I live in the woods, so you might hear some chitty chitty bang bang right now.